All right, here we are with the great Chris Caffery from the band Sabotage, Trans-Siberian Orchestra, and Spirits of Fire. How are you today?
I'm good. I'm good. It's great to be here. It's been an interesting last 3 or 4 months. We just finished the TSO tour, and it was great to be back on the road. But it was definitely one of the most unique touring experiences I've ever had in my life because we were all aware of what was surrounding us every single day. So we definitely spent a lot of time doing less of what we would have normally did on the road, which is be having backstage things, and when we had days off going out around the cities we were in, we kind of just really stayed safe and stayed in our own little bubbles, and it was good though. It was great to see the fans, and we made it through, and knock on wood, everybody was healthy, and it was a great experience to be back. But I'm home now, and the new Spirits of Fire record is coming out February 18th, and a couple of videos have landed. Actually, the one that landed 2 days ago is already, I think, right near 60,000 views in 2 days. So it's pretty crazy. People
I
have
know I could definitely see your excitement. I see all your posts. I'm sure you have a big smile on your face. 60,000 is nothing to sneeze at. You know what I mean? It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, no, it's happening quick, and people are really enjoying the music, which that's the important thing to me. I mean, I don't really do a lot of side projects. I usually do Sabotage and TSO, and then I was doing my solo things. And Frontier kind of came to me a couple of years ago asking if I would be interested in doing Spirits of Fire. Now, the first Spirits of Fire record had Tim Ripper Owens singing, so it was a different lineup at that time. And Tim was a good friend of mine, so that was one of the main things that drew it to me. And it was the ability to be able to write my own music and work with some of my friends, and playing with Mark Zonder and Steve DiGiorgio. It was just a great lineup. And we had Roy Z was producing that record. So when they came to me for the second record, Ripper had decided that he was not going to do this one, and they had said, well, do you still want to do the album? And I like making heavy metal music. It's sometimes doing my solo records gets a little bit draining because I do too many things on my own. So I like the idea of doing it. I let them kind of go around and look, because I was like, well, who's going to sing? Because replacing Ripper is not an easy thing to do at all. Yeah. And at first they'd actually hooked me up with Todd Hall, the singer who sings with the band Riot. And he was on that show. I think it was The Voice at the time. And we were started writing, but it never worked out. And then Frontiers being in Italy, and they had a relationship with Fabio Leone, and they said, hey, you want to do this with him? And I said, well, here's what we got to do. I mean, I want to do it with the right singer. And I sent them, I think it was 14 songs, and he started writing the lyrics and melodies, and I was just really happy with how it came out. So it was an exciting record to finish, because for me, there was a lot less work. The first Spirits of Fire record, I had to write a lot of the lyrics and a lot of the melodies, and it was a lot of things that were being thrown on top of me. With this one, it was kind of focus on your guitars. I wrote all the music, and there's a couple songs that I co-wrote with people, just two of them, but musically, but everything else was just me being able to focus as Chris Caffery, the guitar player, which when I do my solo records, I'm Chris Caffery everything. It's like first base Bugs Bunny, second base Bugs Bunny. It's like everything, single thing you're doing. I was producing and engineering, and I was writing and singing, and the background vocals and the bass, and it was just more fun for me. It was kind of like the old days of doing a Dr. Butcher record, where I just had to do some heavy metal guitars and write some heavy metal music.
Well, how is it with the new singer? Because that's not his style of music, right? He does more of opera-ish.
Well, he did a lot of, Angra and Rhapsody of Fire, the bands. So there are just, some of them are a little bit more, necessarily different genre, but it's a different style, the more progressive kind of singing. And he didn't really use a lot of this heavy metal voice that he's using on this, which I was really impressed with his ability to be pretty much full-on metal when he went into his singing. And this record, the full record, is really, really strong. And he uses some of him and his known style, but it's probably only, I think, like 5% of the time. Most of the record, he's going into more of this, Halford Dickinson kind of thing, or even John Oliva, like with his vocals, to where he's going into this metal thing. And I could tell from just how he sang it that he was having fun doing it. Because you could tell when people are having fun, and he knows that he had that in his voice, and it was just really awesome for me to hear it come out in this music. And I think that the people that are hearing it so far, their main response is like, "Wow, this is just really good traditional heavy metal music," and that's what we wanted to be. I mean, that's what I do. It's like I don't really like to go and try to do different styles to kind of fit with this and that and the other thing. Because I mean, then to me, I don't really listen to enough other music to go, hey, this I know exactly what people are gonna like. I mean, maybe I'll hear a single that's sold, but I to sit there and try to steal that particular style, that's not my thing. So I just like to specialize in what I do the best, which is heavy metal music, and that's what I've always done. So
Well, how do you get a guy like Steve? Because Steve comes from a thrash band. Like he started and he's thrash. He's the thrashiest person I know.
but he's one of the best bass players all around on the planet. And he actually was one of those people that worked a lot with Mike Varney and when he was doing all those records with all these really, really great guitar players, and he was assembling musicians, bands around those guitar players. Steve was born in that world. He was from the musicians world.
Yeah.
So he played with the bands like Death and Testament, but his roots are in that side of things. He's an amazing musician. And I think with this record too, I hate to say this, but the COVID situation kind of played into I would say my advantage more than our advantage, because these guys like Steve had a lot of touring to do when we did the first record, and Mark Zonder had a lot of things going on. When we were doing this album, everybody was home and everybody really focused in on this. And I'm not saying they didn't focus on the first record, but you could definitely hear the amount of time that they put into really making their individual parts have a personality. I mean, the first record was recorded differently too, because I did all the guitars and then the drums were done on top of me, which I hate doing because I like to play to the drums. And that's what I did with this record too. I let Mark Zonder play his parts along with scratch rhythms, and I went back and I even married some of his drum beats and fills and wrote riffs on top of them that were a change in what I had to make it more musical, and those kind of things I couldn't do on the first record. And then Steve, he had gotten his bass tracks done at the very end of the last album. When with this one he was in the middle, and everything just kind of you could hear the way everybody's kind of vibing off, and it sounds a lot more like a band, even though we were completely separated from this virus situation, being in different parts of the world. This sounds to me more like a band, and that's what I like about it. And I think, like I said, that's that hidden advantage that we got, and like I said, I got by having these guys be really available to give the extra time. Like I said, it wasn't that they did a terrible job on the last record at all. It's just, to me, everything really gels on this record. I think it really feels and sounds a lot better.
It definitely does. It's very, very good. So when you guys did your videos, how did you guys get together?
That's the whole thing. We didn't. It was Fabio was in Italy. I was in New York, and Steve and I believe both Steve and Mark were out on the West Coast at that time, and we all were told to do something with black backgrounds and and send it to Italy. So we sent them back to Frontiers, and the videos were done because we really couldn't fly. There was really no way to get people in from other countries, and I am in a situation where when I'm home, I take care of my mom. So for me to go and put myself into a situation where I had to get around a bunch of other people, it would be one of these things where I literally would have to isolate when I got home, and which I did even at the end of this TSO tour. I got home and I isolated and wore a mask and stayed away from my mom as much as possible until I'd gotten to the point where I didn't have any symptoms, but I wasn't sick, but I wanted to be sure. And then I tested myself a bunch of times and I was fine. And that's, just the thing. So it was kind of, and even for TSO too, they were shooting the video stuff in October and we were leaving the beginning of November to do TSO. So if I was to come in contact with that virus at that time, that could have hurt my ability to be able to do the TSO tour. So I'm like, I'm not messing up things with TSO, and I'm definitely not going to hurt my mom. So we did the scattered version of being in different places.
Yeah, well, who was your main editor? Where did all the emails go
Well,
to?
there's an editor that works for Frontiers, and they put it all together in Italy. They have a department. They do a lot of things over there, and they assemble the video. So I had used this Black Wolf imaging here in New York area. This kid was really great, and he did an amazing job, this kid Alex. And we got together, and I did my thing, and I sent it out. It was very quick. We didn't have a lot of time, you know. I just went in, freaking drew some black clothes on it and the black back. I actually went to a really cool old brick building that was in Paterson, New Jersey, in like a warehouse area, and there was some really cool rooms there. And we just went in and filmed this thing, and he sent it out, and that's how it was done. And there was a director that they had hired over in Italy, and they had the ideas in the first video of the girl, and the other one with the way of putting in the things they did with the mirror. So that stuff, like I said, it was good for me because I really didn't have to do a lot of things. You know, it's like one of these things where all I had to do was what I did, and then when you got it and saw it, it's like, this is great. You know, I gave my opinions on a few things on the first video, but this last one was really, really awesome for me out of the gate, and it just it all came together like that. And I mean, it's not anything you want to do every time you do a video, but it was interesting this time. And I think a lot of these videos that you saw during the COVID thing, you saw people in 4 or 5 different settings, and all 4 or 5 different settings looked different. I mean, this one, they managed to all get us kind of, with that black background. So it all kind of looks like we're together. We're never together in the same shots, but we're together in the video.
Yeah, no, when I watched it, I sort of noticed that you guys were in different places, but great job on making it look like you all got together. That was pretty wild. So, are you expecting to do any tours now that you're off the TSO tour? Are you expecting to do any tours with your new band?
Well, this whole Spirits of Fire thing really is pretty much going to go on a few different things, obviously, where the COVID situation goes. I mean, I'm looking now and I'm seeing cruises that were supposed to happen in February, March being moved to 2023. So things are moving around. So for us to go and kind of map out any kind of realistic touring right now would probably be a mistake, because you're gonna wind up running into a wall somewhere. So I would love to do it. I think the best thing for us to do is just kind of wait and let this record go out. I got a ton of press to do in the next few weeks, and I'll do that, and the record comes out, and we'll just see from there. But I think, a lot of people definitely want to see it. It's going to come down to everybody else's schedules. As far as, TSO goes, we're not really planning on doing anything this year other than, working on the unreleased material we had from Paul O'Neill, and obviously preparing for the next TSO tour, which is what they've already started doing. I've already started hearing dates and locations for next November and December. So
Really?
that's exciting. So we'll move forward with that. And it was one of these things where I'm not really looking to run out there. I've gotten some offers from people to do some things, and I'm kind of mulling into them as to whether or not, I actually, in a perfect world, in a different situation, I'm like, yeah, I'll fly over to Europe and do some festivals and this run of shows you have. But right now it's kind of like, do I, is this exactly what I want to do? I'd rather stay home and write. And I do a lot of artwork and other things on the side, so I can be in that situation. And, I'm planning on spending a lot of time in my off time with Sky, my girlfriend, this time. So it's like I never really get a chance to spend time with people when I'm off the road. So this is going to be a good thing to just spend time and being a normal person and doing a lot of creative work at home. So it'll be different.
Well, I'm sure Sky's going to be very happy you just gave her a shout out on an interview.
Well, I was just being me. So.
No, I'm sure she'll appreciate it. So let's go back to your past.
Yes, sir.
So you were in a band called Savatage. What year did that band start, and how long did it last, or is it still lasting?
Well, here's the thing. I am still in the band Savatage. We never stopped being Savatage. This is funny because people always say we're all ex-Savatage, but Savatage, we never broke up. We just stopped playing. So it's kind of like this 20-year pause. But Sabotage formed in the early 1980s, and believe the official year was around 83. And the first record, that is what they're saying, but I think the dates go somewhere between like 79 to 83 and the different formulas of bands that formed into that. But when Sirens had come out, I believe that was in the year of 83, and Sirens and Dungeons, and that was the Oliva brothers and Steve Wackles and a guy named Keith Collins, and they had gotten a deal with Atlantic Records and had released the record Power of the Night, and then Johnny Lee Middleton came into the band after that for the record Fight for the Rock, and then they were doing this record Hall of the Mountain King, and that's when Savatage had met. It was introduced by our A&R guy at Atlantic to Paul O'Neill, and that's when Savatage changed forever, because Paul came in and really lifted the band out of a lot of suspect business things and just kind of focused them to where they could work on the music, because the Oliva brothers are so talented. It was just, a lot of people have specialties in what they do, and the Oliva brothers, God bless them, their specialty is the music. It's definitely not the business side of things sometimes, and it was good. Paul came in and really took over and focused the band and got things going in the right direction. And I was playing in a band that he had produced called Heaven. This band Heaven was on Columbia Records, and I replaced their touring guitar player at the time, this guy named Mitch Perry. Now, I was only 17, and I turned 18 and was working with Paul. And when I was 18 years old, Paul had told me that, he was working on this record with Savatage, and I met them, and he said that he knew Wendy Dio really well, and he was getting Savatage on the United States Dio tour. So it was Dio, Megadeth, and Savatage, and I had turned 19, and the tour was in December, and I, long story short, with a lot of different things, but I wound up playing guitar and keyboards, kind of side stage on that tour, and it was an amazing experience for me. I was a 19-year-old kid that was out on an arena tour, and it was the first time I'd ever really toured. I did local shows and some stuff out with Heaven, and I never really got on a tour bus and did that. So I learned a lot. And, when Savatage was doing the Gutter Ballet record, they came to me to join the band. And that was in 89 and 90. We did that record and tour. And then I had actually had a situation to where, as a kid, I played a lot with my brother, and we had a band, and my brother really wanted me to put that time back into him. And I was, at that age, like I said, I didn't know a lot about the business. So instead of staying in Savatage and doing my thing with my brother on the side, I decided, tough guy me, I was going to leave Savatage and do my own band and do my thing with my brother. And it wasn't really what I wanted to do. It was kind of what, my brother was really getting kind of emotionally upset about me not continuing our thing. I left to go with him on that, and Savatage did Streets, and John Oliva was out of the band after that, and then me and John got together and did Dr. Butcher, and then from that point, I was back into the band once his brother had passed away. I mean, it was really only about a year that I was away from Savatage, and me and John worked together, and then unfortunately, Chris was killed by a drunk driver, which kind of really changed everybody's life after that, because Savatage without Chris was definitely different. So we kept the band alive to keep his music alive, and me and John went back in, and we did Dead Winter Dead and Wake of Magellan and Poets and Madmen. We did those records and tours, and the band really started to take off in Europe. But on that Dead Winter Dead record, we had that Christmas Eve Sarajevo song, and out of that was some crazy radio played in the holiday times, and Atlantic approached Paul about trying to find a way to do that record, and Paul had the concept of TSO for a very long time, and he'd had the story for Christmas Eve and other stories, and TSO was built around that. So it's really just kind of been one really huge family with me. I mean, like I said, I started working with Paul in I believe it was 87, and I never stopped. And even though he's passed away, he's still, to me, he's still my boss. He's always going to be my boss, because I'm going to be working for his family, the O'Neill family, and the organization as long as they'll have me. And it's my home. So, you know, and Sabotage is a wonderful band. We're re-releasing all the Sabotage records right now on vinyl and in stages. So we made it through Fight for the Rock, and Hall of the Mountain King is now at pre-sale. And I was talking to management today, and we're putting packages together for the rest of them. So record by record, they're going through the whole entire catalog. So after Hall of the Mountain King will be a Gutter Ballet release, and it's things these fans are really excited. And we've been talking. I mean, me and John had discussed doing other Butcher records for years, and we've always discussed doing other Sabotage records. But last year we actually started doing some writing. So knock on all kinds of wood. I mean, something may happen, something may not happen. If I say it's going to happen, everybody says Caffery says it's going to. I did an interview a couple of weeks ago, and I told somebody that I was pretty optimistic about it, you know, just because we had written. And then all of a sudden, up on Blabbermouth, I was like, Chris Caffery is optimistic there's going to be a new Sabotage. Well, it's like, yeah, because all the other times we had just we were asked if it was going to happen. This was the first time where I was actually tape trading with John and sending him music and getting ideas and going. So to get I'm not going to have pessimism out of that. You know, I've got optimism over the fact that we started doing some writing again. So we'll see what happens. I mean, I know that nothing would make me happier to have a new Sabotage record, because as much as I am a member of the band, I'm a fan of that band. So it would be a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, it would be. So when going back into your history, what age were you when you started the guitar? Like, what made you pick it up? Was it your father, brother, mother?
Well, you said that. It's funny because I always wanted to play guitar. I just was fascinated by the look at it, but my family really didn't have a lot of money. So it was kind of one of these things where I went to school, there wasn't guitar in the music classes. There was, you either played clarinet, saxophone, or trumpet, or you played the drum. Yeah, my brother played the drums, so I tried to play the drums, but the drummers will hate me when I say this. I wanted to play music. I know. But my brother was already the drummer, so I mean, I got my first guitars when I was really young. When I was 10 or 11, I started playing and taking lessons, and then from there, I kind of took it on as a natural. I mean, I took lessons for a year, but I was pretty much self-taught, you know, other than the things I learned from Aliva and, you know, the people who I worked with throughout my career. But, you know, it was, I think, right around the age of 14, 15 to where my playing started rising to another level. And, you know, obviously by the time I was 17, I had demo tapes that were good enough to get me into a band that was on Columbia Records. So I had something about me that was good enough to move to another level at that age.
Yeah, you played with Megadeth at 19 years old. You know, it's like.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I was opening for Ronnie Dio and touring arenas at 19, and I just had turned 19 too. It was like I was only 2 months out of being 18 at that time. So it was definitely different.
That's a story, man. Holy cow. So what is the biggest show that you played? To how many people?
You know what? I think the most people were at a Savatage did a festival called Dynamo in Holland one year, and I'm pretty sure that topped 100,000.
Wow.
Yeah, we did the Wacken Festival a lot of times in Germany. That one, and that one's around, I believe, like 80,000 that were paid, and that was the last. Sabotage and TSO played that together in 2015. We actually reunited and took 2 stages at once and did that, and that was a sold out thing, and I believe right around 80,000. You know, I did some Brazilian festivals that were pretty big, you know, 45, 50,000 people at those. So I've done some pretty big festival shows, but I think the one in Holland was probably the most people that were on. I did a tour playing guitar in Ripper Owens' solo band, and we played the Download Festival in England, and there was a lot of people at that one, but I'm not exactly sure how many that one was. But and that tour was actually really special because it wound up being, we were opening for Heaven and Hell, and it wound up being Ronnie Dio's last European tour ever. So that's, you know, and Ripper was really good friends with Ronnie, as so was I. So it was really, I mean, it's sad, but it was awesome to be able to get that time with him right before he passed. I mean, I cried like a baby when Ronnie Dio died, but I at least had that extra time with him. You know, it was around 3 weeks, three or 4 weeks that I I got to spend with him, and we were together a lot around each other on that tour. We would, after the Sabbath shows, I call it Sabbath, even though they call it Heaven and Hell. We would be hanging out, me and Tim in Ronnie's dressing room, and just hanging out with him. So, I think that tour was a real blessing for us to be able to get that, those last months with Ronnie that he had.
That. I can't believe I'm talking to someone who knew Ronnie James Dio. This is an honor. I'm going to tell you this right now. It's an honor to talk to you for sure. Excuse me. Yeah. So we I played shows. I played down the block for 30 people.
You know what? I don't look at any show really that much different. It's weird because I don't even see me as being different than anybody. I'm just a kid who has a really cool job. So, I don't look at that. And for me, I got to be honest with you, I'm more nervous playing in front of 30 people than I am 30,000. Because
Yeah.
playing in front of 30, you see every one of them, or 10, you see every one of them, and you can see the expression on each one of their faces. When you play in front of a lot of people, you kind of just look into the blurb. You don't really focus. You don't have to focus on any single one. You can look over the top of their heads, and you look in the back of the arena, and you won't see a face. It's not unless you. And that's why we actually, when we give out guest tickets, we don't give our guest tickets really to our family and friends, because it can be distracting to know somebody that well that's right in front of you. And it really, when my mom would show up at shows, I love my mom to death, but I didn't want to see my mom. It was kind of like, and it's not anything against my mom. It's just I would be thinking about my mom being there, and it's just cute. I would go visit her in the crowd and stuff like that, but I'm just able to be more natural on stage if I'm just doing my thing. And that,
Yeah.
like I said, goes away from people that you've known for a long time. Every once in a while, it'd be a friend of yours. There's my old roommate. I lived in Astoria, Queens for about 15 years. This guy named Igor. I'd known him since I was a kid. And he went on tour with Savatage and did our merch. And he's just like one of the most popular people in Astoria, New York. Everybody knows him. He's a local bartender, carpenter kind of guy that just knows everyone. And he was somehow he got the front row to the TSO show we did at the New Islanders Arena in New York this last tour. And him being in the front row, he had his own show. And he was there with his brother, and they're like a comedy act. And so for me, seeing that though was a distraction that wasn't one where I was worried about me. I was so like amused at watching him and his brother smack each other in the head and spill beer on each other by accident. It was a show inside of our show for me, watching them in the front of the crowd. So
I actually live 20 minutes from that stadium. I know all about Astoria. I've eaten at the 31st Street Diner a trillion times.
Yeah. No, we used to leave. I lived on the Ditmar side, so we'd be at McCann's till about, I don't know, 4 a.m. Then we'd go to the diner, and that's where they would serve you your drinks in your coffee cups, as long as you didn't let anybody know you were still getting alcohol.
Yeah.
You're like 6 a.m, and you're still. Every diner was an after-hours bar in Astoria.
Yeah, I love it. I still love it. I work in the city, so I know all about it. I travel to Brooklyn, Queens.
I'm very fond of Astoria. I had a lot of good friends there, a lot of good times. It's a great part of the city. A lot of people don't understand, when you cross over that bridge and go to that side, is that what that whole little world's like. Especially, I was in the Greek part.
I was gonna say, are you Greek? Because that's all.
I'm not Greek, but my landlord and my landlord's son and everybody, they were. So I became like an adopted Greek person over there, and they're crazy, but they're so much fun. I actually had a Greek record company for my first solo record, and I spent a lot of time in Athens. But I dealt with that, where you would go to the Greek parties and the whatever halls they had, and if you were there an hour and a half late, they'd leave a shot glass on the table for every one that they did. And when you got there, you had to drink one of those to catch up. And I'd be drinking like 6 shots of rye key. In the first half hour, you're fine. Then all of a sudden, you wake up the next day going, "What the frick just happened?" So it's like, yeah.
That's great. Yeah, my wife is Greek. She was born and raised in Astoria. I know all about, yeah, I know all about that whole partying, and it's good times, man. Good times. So, if you were to tell your fans or any musician getting into the music industry, what would you tell them to, watch out for, or, what advice would you give them?
Well, I mean, most importantly is never really over expect things. You have to you have to set goals, and it's hard to say. I mean, I try to tell people, if you can't handle the fact that somebody's going to look at you in this music business and say 1 + 1 is 3, and as much as 1 + 1 is 2, there's going to be somebody that's going to approach you and tell you it's 3. And you have to be able to look at that person and agree with them
Whether you like
to make it in the music business, because there's a lot of things that don't make sense. There's a lot of really good people, but like any business, there's some shady people. And you have to, like I said, you set your goals and you stay focused. And if what you want to do, you have to keep focused. And a lot of times when it seems like things aren't going to happen, that's when they might. I mean, because there's a lot of luck in the music business, timing and luck. If I was not hanging out in bars in New York City when I was 17 years old, I wouldn't have met the people that got me into where I am. And I could tell this story now because I don't think, anybody could get in trouble for what had happened back then. But the drinking age in New York was 19 and it moved to 21. My brother was 19 when it moved to 21. So at 17, I had his ID. And I wasn't drinking, but I was able to get into these bars and clubs at the age of 17. And that's how being in the right place at the right time is how I met the people, the singer in heaven, and how I got where I was doing. So, if I didn't use fake ID, I may not even be talking to you right now. Who knows where my musical career would have went? Not saying kids go use fake ID, but I'm just saying, like, timing and luck have a lot to do with things, being in the right place at the right time. Sometimes before things are happening, I'm not advising people to run out in the middle of this mess, but when life gets back to normal, if there's places to go and you might be a little tired, but you think there's something you might accomplish by going there, do it. If there's a show you could do that may not seem like it's the greatest show in the world, but if you think somebody could watch you that is going to help you, do it. I mean, I think it's one of these things where you can't expect, and I think a lot of people know that, you can't expect money out of the gate. There's a lot of times we do things now, you don't do it for money, you just do it because you love it. So it's like, you have to understand that, you are probably going to need to work unless you can manage to get a band together that can live on the road. And that's hard. It's easier to do when you're younger because, young people won't have their bills and their houses and their families and their wives and their kids. So it's a little bit easier, but I mean, it's hard to balance the lives and to do the music thing. And like I said, there's a lot of timing, there's a lot of luck, and nowadays with the way the internet is and the way they do with how little bands get paid for things and how low record sales are, you make your money on the road. So it's a tough time right now in the middle of this COVID thing with live entertainment being beat on. But you're able to make your videos and you're able to put them out and you're able to process them in that way and to do your live stuff. So I just think you need to focus and if it's what you want to do, be prepared for some ups and downs. It's definitely not a steady anything really. I mean, there's a lot of great times, and even in the midst of that, there's a lot of down times. So and that could be for a lot of different things, because you could be playing and we've lost members of our band, and bandmates I know have lost members of their bands on tour. I mean, it's a living, breathing business like anything else, but you're moving and you're seeing the world, and like I said, I think you just have to focus. And I think for musicians, I'm enjoying watching what I'm seeing online, because I think drummers, guitar players, and all the musicians I've seen, I think their levels are getting higher. I'm watching musicians are getting really good I'm watching these kids play, and I think a lot of that has to do with the net. They can learn how to play by watching other people online, and that's the thing too. I mean, if it's what you want to do, I think you really got to be a master at what you're doing right now, you know, unless you are just a Prince or somebody like that that's going to be the next, you know, Freddie Mercury or genius songwriter, because, you know, it's hard to make it and break it. But I think that's the other thing too, is find your own style.
Yeah.
It's hard to do, but, you know, look for yourself amongst everything you're doing, and don't try to be somebody else. It's a hard thing to tell people to do, because you always, you know, are looking and following, but it's always smart to try to be yourself. And that's what I always say. And the honesty and creativity is what to me makes this business something that I will always enjoy, even after I'm done being on the road. It's just being able to be me and make that, because that's something that nobody can ever take. You can't take yourself away from you, no matter what you do.
Listen, it was a great honor, and I just want to say thank you very much for joining, you know, our page, and we will definitely be sharing it with as many people as we can, and I hope you could do the same.
No, I will, absolutely, and thank you again for the reaction video you did for Spirits of Fire. So thank you again, and I'll talk to you soon.